Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and to the first episode of One Takes. These are just going to be simple videos where I turn on the camera and let it roll, and no editing, so this will be interesting. But I'm hoping to cover a variety of topics in these videos. Today we're talking about Tacomas versus Wranglers, which I think will be really interesting. Also a great space to answer some of your guys' questions. If you've got a question you want me to go more in depth on than what I can do in the comments, just say, hey Caleb, hit this in the next One Takes video. I'd be happy to do that. Those of you who follow the channel know that I've had my Wrangler for about 2.5 years now. But what you probably don't know is before that, I owned a Toyota Tacoma, a third gen, a 2017 TRD off-road. And man, I really liked that truck in a lot of ways. Not so much in some other ways. In fact, it's funny, when I got it, I thought, this is my lifetime vehicle, right? You know, I'm gonna keep it forever. And turns out I only kept it 2 years. So today, I'm going to talk about why. Welcome to 4x Trail. I'm Caleb, and I just got to start off by saying I'm a fan of Toyotas. Okay, we own one. This is my wife's 2017 4Runner Limited, and we love this thing, man. This thing is amazing. I'm going to talk more about it later on in this video, but we've owned several Toyotas over the last decade or so, and you've probably seen my buddy Stuart's second gen Tacoma and some of the other videos on the channel. That's a great vehicle, great build he's got going there. So yeah, I'm not hating on Toyotas. I know by the title, I'll probably get some comments of people, thinking I'm hating on Toyotas, and I'm not. In fact, not only am I a big fan of the brand, but I just think Toyotas and Jeeps, I think probably together they make up the corner market on overlanding vehicles. I mean, it's probably an obvious statement. I know there's a lot of other great platforms out there for overlanding, a ton of other great vehicles besides Toyotas and Jeeps, but I'm pretty sure they are probably the majority, and for good reason. I mean, they're great. They've got a huge following, great communities around both brands, lots of aftermarket parts, readily available. So anyway, both of those options are good. If you're considering one or the other, you really can't go wrong. But hopefully this video is helpful, just highlighting some areas that to me were kind of game changers, and ultimately I'm super happy that I have the Wrangler now instead of the Tacoma. So the way I broke it down is just 3 areas. At the end of the day, these are just my opinions, right? And based on my experience. So your experience might be different, and you might have your own opinions, I'm sure, about some of these things. And that's cool. That's totally fine. I'm just trying to share my experience to help some people out there that are maybe considering purchasing either a Tacoma or a 4Runner or a Wrangler, and you're kind of wondering, what's some of the pros and cons. So category number 1 for why I sold my brand new Tacoma. I bought it brand new, only had it 2 years, and bought a Jeep. Why? First reason is the powertrain in that third gen Tacoma. And you Toyota people out there know that in 2016, the Tacoma and the 4Runner, they share a chassis, they share the platform. But in 2016, the Tacomas were given a different powertrain, and the 4Runners kept going with the older 4-liter 5-speed combo. And the third gen Tacomas in 2016, they started having a 3.5-liter 6-speed. And man, I'm not a fan of that powertrain, guys. I like the old school one in this 4Runner that, as far as I know, they're still in the 4Runner. The 4-liter is. Last time I checked, it was a couple years ago, I think in like 2020 model year, they still had the 4-liter 5-speed in the 4Runners, but the Tacomas are running with this new power plant and new transmission, and the transmission is really where the issue was for me, because man, that thing shifted when I didn't want it to and didn't shift when I wanted it to. It's got this fuel saving thing they built into it. And I know some of you out there are shaking your head right now or nodding your head because you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully they fixed it by now. I'm sure they have. But back in 2017, I even took it back to the dealer and I said, something's wrong with this transmission. Please fix it. And they updated it. They said there was an update from Toyota because there have been so many complaints about it. And so they, reflashed or whatever they do. They updated my computer in the truck and told it to shift better somehow. I don't know. Didn't really change anything. It was still just really difficult to drive, honestly. And I know that's strong language, but for me, the throttle input was just completely wrong from how it should have been. And I know obviously I could have gotten a programmer and probably fixed that. But it was a brand new vehicle under warranty. I didn't want to mess with that. And it just shouldn't have driven that poorly. Even though it got a few better, miles per gallon maybe. I think I averaged around 21 mpg in the Tacoma. And I averaged 16 in my Wrangler, albeit with 37-inch tires on the Wrangler. And the Tacoma, I just had the stock 31s or 32s. So that's a pretty big difference, to be honest, for only 5 miles per gallon. But, it did get 21 miles per gallon, which is not bad, but at the expense of drivability. That transmission was really something. In fact, it actually almost caused an accident on a couple of occasions. I could have easily gotten rear-ended, because where it really gave me grief was when I would be like in a slow-moving lane, like maybe rolling 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, and then you roll out into a fast-moving lane and accelerate to like get around traffic. Well, the third-gen Tacoma, at least my 2017, it would, try to hold that second, third, fourth gear, whatever you were in, from kind of coasting. When you went to accelerate, I'd push the pedal down and nothing would happen. And you'd have to pretty much floor it, and all of a sudden it, jumps way up in RPMs and drops like 2 gears, drops way down to first gear and, takes off. I just want to like drop 1 gear when I give a little throttle input and then accelerate. But there was just a couple of times it almost cost me an accident. So finally, that was, I had too much of that. So the transmission I'm not a fan of it in the third-gen Tacoma. Second reason that I sold the Tacoma and bought a Jeep was simplicity, okay? And this also leads to the ease of modification, which I think is an important thing to note as well. But just overall simplicity. The Tacoma had a lot of tech inside. I mean, for an off-road vehicle of the 2017 era, when I bought it, it had a decent amount of tech. But I didn't really like it, to be honest. The Intune entertainment system, I think it's called Intune, the Bluetooth never worked right. I would be talking on my phone trying to get it to connect, and it never would. Or then the times that I didn't want it to connect, somehow magically it connected. And so kind of like the transmission, it never worked when I wanted it to. But anyway, the Intune system had some issues, and I just wasn't a fan. I'm not a big fan of tech in vehicles, period. I'm kind of old school in that way. I know probably a lot of you like the tech in vehicles. For me, I just feel like it's a distraction. When I go in the Jeep, I just want to be getting out in nature and enjoying, creation, and enjoying the wind in my hair and not being distracted by technology, right? Even on my daily commute to work, that's just kind of one of the simple pleasures of driving, is just not being distracted and being able to focus and just have space to think and whatever. So anyway, I might be alone in that, but I'm not a big fan of all the tech. And so the Jeep is pretty Spartan. It's like, there's not really anything in my Jeep. It's got like an aux input that I plug my phone into. But honestly, I love it because it works. When I want to play music, I plug it in and it works. So there's no issues. The only thing I do miss is the backup camera. And I know I can add one to the Wrangler, but mine didn't come with one. And that is a really nice feature. I'm glad those are pretty much standard nowadays in vehicles, because that's a great feature. Simplicity, not just in the interior, but also in the ease of modification. I think if you're just starting out, I mean, this is subjective. If you work on Toyotas, you probably think Toyotas are easy to work on, right? But from someone who's worked on both, if you're just starting out, I think you'll find the Jeep a little bit easier to modify and to work on. Just everything's pretty much bolt on, bolt off. It's just a little simpler design, I feel like, than the Tacoma. So than the Toyotas in general. But that's a little subjective, but something worth noting. I think you'll find the Jeep a little easier to work on. One note, though, on the interior of that Tacoma. The third-gen interior, I think, is one of the best-looking interiors of any vehicle, any off-road vehicle. It's just a really nice design that they did on that. Okay, so that's the second reason. The third reason that I sold the Tacoma and bought a Wrangler is the fun factor. And this one honestly was a huge reason for me because like a lot of you, I daily drive my vehicle, right? So most of the time, unfortunately, most of the time I'm on pavement. I wish it was the other way around, but it's my daily driver, right? So because of that mundane daily commute, I want a vehicle that's fun to drive. And the Tacoma was, clearly it's a precision designed vehicle. It's the steering feel and everything is great, but it's a little bit bland. And the Jeep is just a lot more fun to drive. It's peppy. The steering input is just it's lively and fun. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a more engaging vehicle to drive. And I think the biggest fun factor is being able to take the top and doors off, right? So that's like the quintessential Jeep thing. You got to take your doors off and just let the air in. And to me, that's like one of those simple pleasures again, just driving, into work, but being able to let the sunlight in and get the wind in my hair. I love that. And so the fun factor of the Jeep is, to me, way, way, way higher than the Tacoma. Even just on daily driving, I think it's a lot more fun to drive for me, in my experience. Some of you may disagree with that, which is totally fine, but the fun factor was big. And the community. Toyota has a good community around them, but I think Jeep has an even better community, to be honest. So just that's another thing to think about. So those are the three reasons. And what's interesting, I told you I'd talk about the 4Runner here. The 4Runner is a lot more similar to the Wrangler than it is to the Tacoma, I think. And here's why. For those same three reasons. The powertrain, 5-speed, right? The Tacoma had the 6-speed with the fuel-saving computer that was trying to interfere. These things, just the old school 5-speed, they just shift when you want them to and don't shift when you don't want them to, and it's really nice. Simplicity of the interior. The 4Runner has a real simple interior as well, way less tech than the Tacoma, at least in 2017, which is what this 4Runner is. And the fun factor. I mean, I just think the 4Runner is a great fun vehicle to drive. So just some interesting thoughts if you're out there considering one of these vehicles. Hopefully some of this was helpful. Let me know what you think. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear what you disagreed with, what you agreed with. Let's have some good conversations and dialogue down below. Because to be honest, guys, if you're out there getting into overlanding, you're probably at least checking out, maybe not ending up buying one, but you're at least going to check out the 4Runner, Tacoma, Wrangler, amongst all the other great vehicles for overlanding. Those three are probably on your list, right? So hopefully this was helpful. If so, give it a thumbs up. And guys, speaking of the 4Runner, what do you think? I think we've owned this thing about 4 years now. Might be time to start upgrading it, you think? I have to convince Ashley. I don't know. My wife, she may not be a fan of that because she's the one driving it. But something to think about in the future. Might get into that. We'll see. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Share it with a friend. Make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you in the next video.